And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network. Also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green, along with the good folks at Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. The message is simple. Go buy a car at George Moore Chevrolet.
Go buy a car from good dudes. No, they got a service department, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Super clean, by the way. I used to do, last year we did these, it was fun. Every week we'd go out and do picks, and it was Justin Moore, who's the GM, against his staff. Justin ended up winning.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was every Friday. It was fun. I don't know why we didn't do it this year. But their service bays, I'm not even kidding you, are as clean as my kitchen.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, it's locally owned, locally operated. Get out there, go buy a car, get your car serviced. Atlantic Boulevard, beautiful place, good people. What else do you need?
Yeah, George Moore Chevrolet, Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. Appreciate those fine establishments for bringing you this edition of Gator Bytes. All right, Denny Thompson, 43-20. The Gators lose to Georgia. It really didn't even feel that close. Boy, you kind of got some thoughts there when it was 7-0. Florida marches right down the field and punches it in, and then reality set in pretty quick there at Everbank Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if it wasn't for the fourth down play call, what we would be talking about right now is just the gap between talent and Georgia.
Can I stop you at the fourth down play call really quick?
Yeah.
You're the perfect person to ask. It's Monday morning quarterbacking at its finest, right? If you run a halfback dive up the middle on 4th and 1, people are going to say, well, what are you doing? Why are you running a halfback dive up the middle? I thought the play call to snap it between Mertz's legs back to ETN, the concept of it to me was really interesting. Now, in hindsight, it didn't work, right?
I thought it was maybe the worst call I've seen in the history of football.
Oh, my gosh. I totally disagree.
Let's structurally talk about this, Hack.
Okay.
Let's get down to X's and O's here. So you're going to walk a quarterback up, and you're going to snap it between his legs. So now you're playing 10 on 11. So you've immediately taken a guy out because Graham Mertz is worthless.
That's the element of surprise.
Oh, okay. So they're surprised you snapped it through their legs. So let's surprise them again, and let's take our best playmaker with the ball in his hands, and let's ask him to throw it. It makes no sense on any level ever.
Yeah, but couldn't you say that about any halfback pass downfield or any wide receiver?
Not on 4th and inches.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
At your own 30.
But if you're Graham Mertz and you're under center and you hand it off to Montrell Johnson and you run it in the middle in front of 1,000 pounds of Georgia D linemen and you get stuffed a yard behind the line of scrimmage, then aren't people screaming that, what are you doing running it up the middle on 4th and 1?
No. Why are you going for it? They're saying, why are you going for it? Because you did the thing that everybody does because it works. Like, you have to make them spot the ball. Either handoff, quarterback sneak, you have to make them spot the ball when it's that close. I don't even understand how that got into the game plan, Hack. Like, we're going to snap it between our quarterback's leg to our best running back, and he's going to throw it?
Well, it's like a fake punt.
It's not.
Anything like that. I mean, you're trying to get them.
It's not, though.
But when you're overmatched, right, which I think we agree, the Georgia defense.
So let's take a guy out. No. So now let's play 10 on 11.
I understand what you're saying. I think it's the element of surprise. It did not work.
Oh, it surprised everybody.
If that thing worked, the conversation would be vastly different right now. Vastly different.
Sure. When did it work? Did they run it in practice and it worked? Because if they did, then I got questions about our defense.
Yeah.
When did you see it work that made you go, hey, we're in a close game with Georgia, our biggest rival. Let's do this now.
Hey, you tip your cap. Tip your cap to the dogs.
I couldn't be further apart on this because I just don't even understand. I don't understand any of it. The whole element of surprise could have been just snapping it between the legs. Run the damn ball. Like, you got the ball in your best running back's hands, and you ask him to throw it?
And you trust the Gator O-line to move the Georgia D-line off the ball?
More than I trust him to throw a ball when he's never done it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It did not work, obviously.
Sorry.
I know he threw one other pass. I know
threw
that.
the conversion the week before, which was my issue with the play call. Georgia definitely saw Trevor Etienne throw a conversion. That was my problem.
Yeah, the whole thing is just
Other than that, I'm kind of with Hack.
When the play happened, I sat there in my living room with my mouth wide open just going, I don't even have words. I have no words for what just happened. It's
now. Granted, I was a couple of beverages in, so maybe I was a little more excited at that point to see a trick play. But we give the Florida offense such grief and annihilate them so much for being basic, right? Or not doing anything outside the box. Well, that was outside the box. And again, it's Monday morning quarterbacking at its finest. Maybe you wouldn't because you're an X's and O's guy.
I don't think it is, though. I don't think it is Monday morning quarterbacking. I really don't.
If that thing works, it's a completely different game.
Hacker, it didn't work.
I agree.
And it's not going to work. You can do it 10 more times. It's not going to work. Like I understand the element of surprise, but let's surprise them on something. Let's surprise them on 3rd and 1. Right?
Well, for
you
starters,
can do that on 3rd and 1 if you want to. I
thought the Gators got a punt. I thought the Gators got a terrible spot by the way on that 3rd down.
Yeah, agree.
It was a terrible spot.
But it's not like a fake punt because you practice a fake punt. Like when you set your up backs, it's like, hey, this guy may need to throw. He may need to run, whatever. You didn't recruit ETN to throw. I don't understand. And now I am.
See, but with that logic, though, you don't recruit any running back or wide receiver to throw. So then you would never run a trick play?
In which I'm snapping between my quarterback's legs and asking my running back to throw? No, right, I would not.
But with that logic, you never recruit a running back to throw.
I may toss sweep off of a turnover and be like, yo, dude, if that dude is streaking open, which is what happens most of the time, then we're going to throw it. If not, then you're going to run it. Yeah. Like I would have some form of bell out there. But this was a little crosser to Pearsall. This wasn't even like hey, you're going to run it unless he's wide open. He's got to track him across the field, Hack. Like, I just, and by the way, I am also going to say that I don't want to hear any conversation about Napier not being here for at least halfway through next season because he's recruiting at an extremely high level. So I'm not saying fire Napier. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. I think, okay, chalk that up to a lesson learned on the job. I guarantee he don't do that crap again.
Well, here's the thing, and I said this on Monday on my show. Napier has a year. He has 1 year. The Georgia game next year. And I'm not saying they can't lose to Georgia next year because I would probably pick Georgia to beat them next year. Why not? But they can't get embarrassed. That's 2 years in a row in the 3rd quarter that this was not a football game at the cocktail party. And if that happens again in 2024, then I think it is fair after 3 years on the job, 3 years on the field, which is what I've always said. He needs minimum 3 years. But next year at the cocktail party, if they're down 30 in the 3rd quarter again, I think at that point it's fair to begin questioning what are we doing, what direction are we going?
I mean, I think it's always fair to begin questioning. I agree with you on that. I just think the way this guy is recruiting, I don't even think you talk about it then. That's just me personally. I think he had a freshman class last year that's making an impact. He's got a better class coming in. Let him set up that next class, and now you should be up there with Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama because you got 3 years plus the portal.
Yeah.
So you have no reason to not have depth. You should look very similar to what Florida State's looking right now. So I am, when I talk about this play call, I didn't coach at that level. I didn't coach close to that level. Every coach has these play calls that when you lay down 10 years later and you think about it, you're still embarrassed by. That's what that is.
Wow. Yeah, you and I disagree on that.
That's what that is. Like, I guarantee you, if you were just having a beer with Billy Napier, who, by the way, be a great person to have a beer with. I know he seems like what he seems
looks like he can throw him down a little bit.
Not even that. He's just a super smart, great conversation guy. Like, love talking to him. But if you were to sit back and have a beer with him, I guarantee he'd be like, yeah, that goes down as one of the worst ones I've had.
Carson Beck was sensational for Georgia. And flip side, the Gator defense is awful. They have regressed since the beginning of the year. They were decent against Utah. They were good against Tennessee. After the Tennessee game, they've been terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's Austin Armstrong, if that's the youth on defense, a combination of everything. But even the South Carolina win, it got overshadowed because of the win. They were awful in Columbia. They couldn't stop Spencer Rattler a majority of that game. This is as bad a Gator defense as they've had in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay if y'all are okay with it of using just the youth excuse for everything, including the defense. And I don't mean that like I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm being serious because You can't keep turning over coaches, blaming coaches. Like, for the most part, coaches are all coaching the same thing about run fits and tackling and things like that. And they just kind of sprinkle their whatever they want to do to it, right? But at the base of football, it's running, tackling, things like that. If you're 23 years old, you're going to have an advantage over a 19-year-old in those things, right? So I'm okay. My suggestion is, you don't lose any coaches. If you want to add an OC, that's cool, but even be careful with that, because don't come in with a whole new language.
Right, you could add Dan Enos, and that would be an awful decision.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I think right now, if we're going to talk about the youth, I think that's the issue with the defense. I think they've got some talent, but I do, and that front seven has way underperformed from what we thought they were going to be earlier in the year.
Well, reinforcements are coming. We talk about that recruiting class. You could argue Florida right now has the best front seven class in 2024.
Oh, I don't even think you could argue. I think they do, right? Statistically, anyway, on paper they do. Graham, you going to say something?
I was just going to talk about the youth comment. But finish what you were saying.
No, I'm good.
I don't know if it's youth. I don't know what to blame. All I know is on that Ladd McConkey touchdown, the first one,
where he came back with a cross and then he came back down the middle. I got some insight for you.
You give up the catch, whatever happens. You give up the catch. Jason Marshall got beat. I'm pretty sure on that. Like, happens, whatever. Ladd ran a good route. Carson made a good throw. Mm-hmm. They get a first down. The pursuit after that is, I think, the worst pursuit I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
Trying to run down, or because Ladd McConkey is a good player and he's a good route runner and he's an underrated player, but we're not talking about a 4.1 track speed guy.
Part of the problem is Shamar James' knee was in a brace because the field was terrible.
But is Jason Marshall's knee in a brace? Because he was jogging down the field.
I got some insight on that play if you wanted, actually. Like that I would love some. That was an interesting play, and that was an elite level play by Carson. Because Ladd's coming across, I think it was left to right, across the field, right?
Yes. There's an in-breaking route.
And Carson saw the rotation of the defense and threw him to his inside shoulder, which tells you which way to cut, right?
So he can catch it and then cut the other way.
He just cuts inside. Now, that sounds easy, but go out there and try that. Go out there and try that as a quarterback, throw a ball 30 yards down the field with the guy going 4.40 across the field. It's crazy execution. I agree with you, but that is a very tough angle, but you would like to think that however yards he ran, somebody could have caught up with him in 20 yards.
It was almost like every single DB said, "Oh, he caught it. Sucks."
But I also think, though, that's you're talking about Ladd McConkey's a senior, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy that's played a lot of football.
Right.
You're talking about a guy that's played a ton of football, been in that weight program, been in that speed program for 4 or 5 years. And I guess what I'm saying is, if we're going to be fair and we're going to compare Florida to Georgia, which we have to because they play each other, then I'm good with using the youth movement right now. Yeah, I'm good with seeing what that looks like a year and 2 years from now.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that, in my opinion. Year 2 of Georgia with Kirby Smart. Couldn't you have said the same thing? Oh, they're young.
Oh, I don't think so. I think if you go back and look at that roster, I don't. Well, they didn't win a natty either.
No, but they were a lot better than this.
Oh, I mean, they were, 7-5 his first year?
Well, yeah, but what were they second year?
Yeah, but
Napier's second year.
But you think that he came in following Mark Richt to the same situation roster-wise?
I mean, here's what I'm telling you. Dan Mullen had this team in Power 5 bowl games 3 out of the last 4 years.
Man, we sat on here for 2 years cussing Dan Mullen's recruitment.
Right, no, we did. And you're not wrong about that. But it's not as if Florida was a 4-win team before Billy Napier, got there. Florida was a bowl team. They were awful that year, but then they were in Power 6 games.
Heck, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm simply saying I don't think the answer to any of Florida's problems is in another coach again.
Oh, no.
And I don't think that the answer. I don't think that the answer the next year and a half is in another coach.
But to me, saying the youth, and I don't totally disagree with you. I'm just doing this for the sake of the podcast.
Sake of radio. Yeah.
When Kirby Smart does what he does in year 2 at Georgia, when Josh Heupel does what he does at year 2 in Tennessee, he had him number 1 in the country year 2 in Knoxville. It is fair to be like, okay, why is Tennessee in year 2 with Heupel? Tennessee was awful with Jeremy Pruitt, by the way. Why is Tennessee year 2 with Heupel in the playoff rankings, and Florida's getting boat raced by Georgia, and now it's 5-3 on the year?
Sure, you can go through and you can pull examples. You're talking about one coach who's going for back-to-back-to-back national championships.
Okay, Heupel's probably a better comparison.
And then Heupel, let's see what he does the rest of the year. Yes, he's in a better – but for every coach of like that, you can go pull 20 that aren't having – I mean, everybody was wanting to hire Dion 6 weeks ago. Now I don't hear anybody talking about him.
Unless you're the Las Vegas Raiders. That's the hot rumor.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's just – I think it's so week to week, and then if all of a sudden we look up 4 weeks from now – and he's pulled off 2 out of these last 4, then okay, yeah, then that provides a little relief. But the fact is they have 1 starter that's a senior. That's it.
They're the youngest team in the Power 5.
Yeah, so by the way, if you want to take the biggest strength that the guy has and you want to neutralize it, then start calling for his job. Because the fastest way to lose recruits right now is uncertainty. And if people start being able to recruit going, hey, the Florida fans want him gone, then, yeah, you may lose some recruits.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. Again, Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. You can also check them out by logging onto their website, se-ortho.com, and of course the good folks at George Moore Chevrolet.
Yeah, you still got me thinking about that play call. And by the way, Justin Moore is the biggest Gator fan. When we were doing that pick'em contest, he would not pick Florida. Just refuse. You know you're a big fan when you refuse to pick your team, just so you don't be so you're not disappointed. Go see a bunch of Gator fans there. Go see them at George Moore Chevrolet.
Need to get to the Arkansas game in the black uniforms, which. Don't even get me started
You're a uniform
on
guy?
those. No, I can't believe they're wearing black uniforms. But we'll get there in a moment. Quickly, final thought on Georgia. I said this last week. This was not an unbeatable Georgia team. This was a Georgia team that was losing to Auburn in the fourth quarter. It was a Georgia team that was losing to South Carolina at halftime. To me, this was not the Georgia of 2022, albeit it appears they are getting better as the week goes on. The fact that Florida got embarrassed last week is the thing that I did not think could happen. It's no shame to lose to the Dogs, but when you're down 36-7 or whatever it was, that to me is a bad look based on Georgia's previous games.
I completely agree, and we said that last week. We said that you don't have to win, but you do have to show that gap is narrowing. You didn't show that. You didn't show that at all. I do think Georgia's a lot better right now than what they were when they played that Auburn and South Carolina.
Clearly, they're better than they were a month ago.
But you're 100% right. You needed to narrow that gap, and you haven't.
All right, so Arkansas this week. Let's get it out of the way right now. I'm the oldest 40-year-old on the planet. I understand recruiting, and I understand all that. I have family relatives that might be rolling over in their grave on Saturday when Florida comes out. No orange, no blue, black uniforms, black helmets. Your thoughts?
I don't care.
No?
I don't care if they go out there in pink. I am not a uniform guy at all. I get
it's for the younger generation. I get it, and recruits love it. And,
kid yourself if you want to. You know how many black jerseys they're going to sell?
Oh, right. Florida State did the same thing.
Yeah, it ain't just for the younger generation. It's for that extra $5 million in merchandise sales they're going to get this weekend.
But that'll be bought by the young generation, right? I don't know how many 55, 60-years are going to go buy black uniforms.
The money still spends, whoever buys it.
Right, but I'm saying...
I'm just saying it's not recruiting.
Right.
It's not just... Because I don't think I don't think the uniforms play like they used to. It's just not a thing,
then what's the point just doing it to sell?
Yeah, just doing it to be different, try to get people in the stands. It's
a noon kick, too. I guess they're lucky they scheduled it in November.
But I definitely understand both sides. I understand the people who are traditionalists, and I understand the people who love the uniforms. It just doesn't register for me. I don't care at all.
I always remember Auburn and Georgia. No, it was Alabama and Georgia. And Georgia was going to wear the black uniforms. This was probably 10, 12 years ago. And there was an Alabama coach that was caught at practice saying they're wearing black uniforms because they're going to a blanket funeral. And then Alabama goes out there and just annihilates them in Athens. Those are always my thought on alternate uniforms. That and Florida State wearing Unconquered on their pants. And Boston College just going into Tallahassee and beating the crap out of them. So it's always a bad look when you do these alternate uniforms and then you lose. Maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit, which is somewhat...
I'd love to be in your head, man.
That's what I was thinking about. Anyway, Arkansas rolls in. Let me ask you, KJ Jefferson, the quarterback. People were talking Heisman conversation at the beginning of the year for this guy. Arkansas had a lot of hype coming into the year with Sam Pittman. Could you argue they're the most disappointing team in college football? Maybe Clemson's higher on that list, but Arkansas is probably in the conversation, are they not?
Yeah, probably. I mean, very difficult schedule, which they have every year. But from that standpoint, I don't know that when you look at all these games that they've lost, that before the season you thought that they were going to win all of them. I don't think that's the case. But with that being said, like they have definitely taken a massive step back. I love Sam Pittman. I think he's a great coach, a great human being. His players love him. I think the loss of Kendall Briles was bigger than what they thought.
Well, they made a terrible hire in replacing Kendall Briles.
Yeah, turns out that way.
Any thoughts on Dan Enos or?
No, when I get quiet on these things, yeah.
Because you and Dan Enos go way back.
We do go back. Yeah. We do go back. But anyway, Kendall's a good offensive coordinator, and what Kendall did offensively fit KJ really well. I haven't talked to Kendall since he's been at TCU in some time, but when he was at Arkansas, we spoke pretty regularly, and he was a huge KJ fan. So I think the kid's talented. I mean, I haven't watched enough Arkansas football to know if they've got issues outside. It's probably not all on KJ. But, I mean, they're desperate for a win.
They're losing games in the fourth quarter like every week. If you look at their results,
it's close.
I think 5 of their 6 losses have come by like 8 points or less.
So like Alabama and, I mean, good teams.
Yeah, right. But you lose 7-3 to Mississippi State. Yeah, and that was the final straw. That's when Enos got fired.
BYU beat them early in the season.
BYU beat them. So Arkansas had a bye week last week. They fire their OC. This is their first game since. You know they're going to try to rally around Sam Pittman and try to keep his job. So Florida, you wonder where they are mentally, man. You get embarrassed by Georgia. You lose one of your best defensive players in Shamar James. It's a short week. From that standpoint, it's a noon kick. Arkansas had a week off. They're desperate. They're playing for their coach. Do the Gators have to be careful tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I do think that we put a lot more into that kind of stuff than they do. I mean, these guys realize they work all year for 12 games. Like they only get 12 of these. And so usually I think the atmosphere, like we talk about that noon kick in Vanderbilt being tough, I think that's real, right? But that's not the Swamp at noon. I mean, even if the Swamp is only 80% full, it's still a million times better than Vanderbilt at noon. So I think they'll be ready to play. I think it just comes down to, are either one of these teams any good?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we seeing right? And that's probably the better.
I'll just answer that question. No,
right. That's probably the better answer than any of this. Is we're watching two teams still trying to find their footing. Now, I think Arkansas. I would rather be Florida because I feel like everybody understands Florida's got young talent, and we feel like it's on the way up. And Arkansas seems like with an older quarterback to be kind of trending down. So I don't know. I mean, I would think Florida would be a little more excited, but to your point, these guys are going to want to play for Sam Pittman.
Florida better win tomorrow because you need one more win to become bowl eligible, and tomorrow is the easiest game by far and away of your remaining games.
I feel like they're going to get one of those last 3.
Which one?
I don't know. I know it makes no sense to say it, and if you go individually, but am I alone on this?
No. I think they are too.
Yeah, I don't know which one.
Who are they? I mean,
LSU. I mean, let's say
you're going to go into Baton Rouge and beat LSU.
I just said it don't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Don't judge me like that. I'm just saying in general.
It's just like a gut thing.
Like, yeah, I feel like one out of the 3. Like I don't know.
I mean, they've had.
We didn't think they were going to beat Tennessee.
Well, they've had so much success out in Baton Rouge in the history of the program.
Heck, so, I don't know. Yeah, that's why I shouldn't have said it.
And look, Florida State, it's a rivalry game. I get it. If you're Florida, after you secure the win over Arkansas and become bowl eligible, your entire season is about ruining Florida State's season because the committee on Tuesday night basically told you by putting Florida State 4 behind Michigan and Georgia, who I believe Florida State has better resumes than both, that Florida State can't lose a game or they're probably not going to the playoff. So if Florida wants to ruin the Seminole season, you simply beat them, and that probably knocks them out of the 14 playoff.
There's a lot of football between now and then.
Agreed. But
a lot of football. Ohio State and Michigan still play each other.
I thought it was
a lot of football.
I thought it was outrageous, and I'm not trying to commend Florida State here, but I thought it was outrageous for Michigan to be ranked higher than Florida State. Michigan has played literally nobody, where Florida State has wins over LSU and Clemson on the road, mind you, away from Doak Campbell in both of those games. So I think that was...
Listen, it's simple. If you're Florida State or any undefeated team, you control your own destiny.
Agreed.
You cannot ask for more than that. It doesn't matter where everybody's ranked. If you win every game that you line up to play for the rest of the season, you go home with a ring.
But my point is, with Michigan being 2, they can probably afford a loss more than Florida State can.
I don't know with everything Michigan's got going on.
Well, that's true, too.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a good point. That's a crazy story, by the way.
whole thing's insane.
It is. All right, so we'll get to predictions in a moment, but quickly, back to the whole bowl scenario. You've been a coach. You work with these athletes on a daily basis. People talk about bowl practices for the young players. Is that as important as we make it out to be?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a chance for after the season for you to almost go back in camp mode, not the workload, but from the evaluation standpoint. It is huge for the coaching staff. It is huge for the players. And it's under talked about because these teams that consistently make the semifinals and the finals, man, they're getting 3 extra weeks. And more than that, these early signee freshmen, they're getting to come in and learn 2 games worth of practice.
Well, you just said it. DJ Lagway is an early enrollee. He could participate in some of those bowl practices for the Gators.
Yeah, but their bowl games can be too early.
Well, that's true, too.
So it won't be up to, but take like Luke Cromenhawk, who I work with, who's going to Florida State. Well, let's say they go to the semifinals. Well, Luke can technically be there, like, I don't know, late December or mid to late December. He practices all the way up to January 1st and then again for the championship game, January, whatever that is. And now he's got 2.5 weeks under his belt of practice that DJ Lagway don't have. So you start stacking up years.
Yeah.
And that adds up.
But how does that work, though? I mean, is there a rule that if the Gators play a bowl game on December 29th, start bowl practice on December 10th, that Lagway can't participate?
No, there's not a rule. I think it's after signing day, which is December 20th.
So it has to be after signing day.
Yeah, I believe so. And I'm not 100% sure on that, but and then they're going to break for Christmas. So what's he going to get?
Yeah, that's fair. I thought that I didn't know if you could just, if signing day is December 20th, if you're DJ Lagway, we'll say, well, I'm just going to sign December 9th and go into bowl practice.
I don't think you can. I think like you can sign I'm getting out of my expertise here. There is a way, but it's a little extra to have to do it. And they got to finish their high school. Like they got to graduate high school. So most of them have classes until the 18th, 19th anyway.
And we assume people know DJ Lagway, the 5-star quarterback in Texas.
That throw we had last week.
Yeah. That's committed to Florida. He's put up crazy numbers, man.
Did you see the throw where he kind of did the 360?
I saw the one on video.
I don't know why he did it. I meant to text him about it, but that was impressive.
Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah, you think that's just why he did it?
I don't know, but it looked cool.
Because he didn't need to do it. There was nobody there. I'm going to have to text him and find out. We need to try to get him on.
I think he had like 450 yards of offense and 7 touchdowns last week.
We need to try to get him on.
DJ, I have his cell phone. I've had him on a couple of times. His coach out there is cool.
Yeah.
His coach out there is kind of his, like, I won't say agent, but his coach, like, facilitates everything. And his coach is great. I've never had any issues.
We spent some time with he and his dad this offseason. And, I mean, he's just really good family.
Yeah, no, I agree. Every time I've had DJ on, very respectful, and we're certainly looking forward to him coming to Gainesville. All right, it's a good slate of games tomorrow. Let's get into it first. Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. They're North Florida's leading orthopedic center. For the highest quality care, you can rely on Southeast Orthopedic Specialist for any orthopedic injury or concern. And you can listen to the good doctor, Kevin Murphy, Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour, right here with Jeff and Dan on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports. Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, along with the good folks at George Moore Chevrolet, bring you Gator Bytes.
It's a great weekend to buy a car. Jags are off, right?
It's a great Sunday of NFL football, too.
And now you're getting into my great weekend to buy a car.
Oh, well, that's true. You buy a car and then enjoy everything. That's right. That's right. But go see the good folks at George Moore Chevrolet. All right, Saturday. Let's start in the SEC slate. I'll just kind of go in order here. A&M goes to Ole Miss. Jimbo at 5-3. It seems like maybe he got a big one last week to cool the Jets a little bit, but still at 5-3. Your thoughts as they go visit number 10, Ole Miss? People have forgotten about them, and they're just still hanging around.
Well, and if you're Ole Miss, you got this one, and then next week you go to Athens.
Woo.
Yeah. And so that's a tough road, but at the same time, like you find a way to win both of those, and you're squarely in the talk.
Yeah. UConn goes to Tennessee. That won't be a game. Just for my own personal interest, Jacksonville State goes to South Carolina. For some reason, since Jacksonville State beat Florida State a couple of years ago, I've been watching them more, and they're on like these Tuesday nights. And I think Rich Rodriguez, right, is their head coach. Rich Rod,
yeah.
They're 7-2. That might be a big one for Beamer. If Jacksonville State goes in there and wins, Beamer would fall to 2-7. He'd be in trouble.
I always use Jacksonville State as an example. If you go back about 10 years ago, Jacksonville State was the team that was playing Florida State week 1, Michigan week 2, and getting just pummeled, but getting money.
Getting paychecks, yep.
And they put all that money into their athletics, and they have beautiful facilities, and it is a very underrated college from a football perspective. Rich Rod's doing a great job, and they've got good resources there.
I watched some of those games too on like the Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
They run that tempo that nobody in their conference has an answer for.
Rich Rod's been doing that now for 20 years.
And Graham,
man.
why
It's
do you
crazy.
watch those games on Tuesday nights?
Because I love college football
And
a little bit of financial stuff, of course.
Well, to be fair, they played Austin Reed. They played Western Kentucky 2 weeks ago, so I watched that one.
Yeah. Well, They just like, you can tell that like first quarter, whoever they're playing, when their defense has a little bit of gas, they can like maybe get some stops. Once it gets like second, third, fourth quarter, the defense they play is just tapped out.
Again, I'm not telling people to watch Jacksonville State, South Carolina, plus it's on opposite Florida anyway tomorrow. But the lust on Shane Beamer at the end of last year is already completely gone. And if Jacksonville State rolls in there and gets South Carolina to 2-7, the locals are not going to be happy at Williams-Brice Stadium. Auburn goes to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt playing out the stretch. Auburn playing for a bowl game. Big game for Auburn.
Yeah, Peyton had an amazing game last week. Finally had a breakout game. They need to keep that going because that offense was so hard to watch for the last year and a half, really. So I think this is a big momentum test for Auburn.
Kentucky goes to Mississippi State. Two teams that probably are going bowling, although Mississippi State at 4-4, they need to win at least 2 of their last 4. It's in Starkville tomorrow night.
And is Will still hurt? Rogers?
I'd have to look.
I wouldn't make that assumption on a bowl game. I mean, you look at their remaining schedule. They still got the Egg Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So got Ole Miss. I mean, I don't know who their schedule is, but I don't think 6 wins is a guarantee. They need this one.
Yeah, Kentucky on the road. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. It's a decent game on the SEC Network. All right, we'll save Florida, Arkansas for last. Let's get to a doubleheader tomorrow, which essentially you have an SEC East championship game at 3:30 and an SEC West championship game at 8. It's fantastic. Missouri goes to Georgia. Now, Missouri, if you'll remember, they had the Dogs beat last year in Columbia until Georgia came roaring back in the fourth quarter. I don't think Missouri is going to be intimidated by playing Georgia. Having said that, it is in Athens, big game, SEC East on the line. Your thoughts between Missouri and the Dogs?
I like what Missouri's doing. I think it's maybe a little too familiar for Georgia because defensively their structure is very similar to Georgia's, much like Kentucky's is. I think Georgia's playing right now at a really high level offensively. I think that in a way, like the Brock Bowers thing to me, just spread the ball out a little bit. Now, you're going to miss Brock Bowers. Don't get me wrong. That dude is one of the best players in college football.
Yeah, we didn't even bring that up. Georgia took Florida behind the woodshed without Brock Bowers.
Yeah, but in a way, like I almost think it's a struggle to guard or to cover Brock. But then when he's not in the game, then you got to worry about the other 4 guys. So I think they're in a good rhythm. I think Georgia takes this one, but I think Missouri does put up a fight. I think the Missouri team's a lot better than people think they are.
It's a big game. It is basically an SEC East championship game for Georgia. For Missouri, they still have 4 conference games.
Yeah, they can. I think they can clinch it this week, but then Georgia also has Ole Miss and Tennessee.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Still left.
Yeah, because Missouri at 3-1 in the SEC, so they're only halfway through their SEC slate. All right, SEC West tomorrow night in Tuscaloosa. LSU and Alabama, number 8 versus number 14. You kind of knew Alabama was going to get back here, right? They lose to Texas. People wrote them off. Nobody's been paying attention to them very much. They just keep winning and winning and winning. And now a win tomorrow night will essentially lock up the SEC West.
Yeah, it's a crazy football. I love this football year, though. I love that early in the year it didn't seem like there was a dominant team. And now we're getting to see it kind of all play out, even down to like we're in the last quarter of the season. And there's still so many questions. And I think one of the biggest questions in college football isn't even Alabama's LSU.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is LSU and how dangerous is LSU? Because offensively, I mean, Jaden Daniels, it's not quietly, people are talking about it, but he is having a phenomenal year. But that's what Alabama does, isn't it? Alabama takes somebody who is that hot and just completely humbles them. So I think that rivalry's great. I think this is a great game. I love the nighttime. I'd rather that be the night game always than a 3:30 kick.
Emotional moment for everybody around here. Last doubleheader on CBS for the SEC for a long time.
Oh, is that right?
Remember, it moves to ESPN and
right.
ABC next year.
Yeah.
So the last time you'll hear the music with Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson on the call. So, all right, those games, and then obviously the biggest one of the weekend, high noon, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium at Florida Field. The 2-6 Arkansas Razorbacks, 0-5 in the SEC, by the way, go to play the 5-3 Gators, 3-2 in the SEC. I think Florida wins. But as I told you, I think this is a game in the fourth quarter, and it concerns me the circle the wagons aspect, if you will, for Arkansas. Win one for Sam to keep his job. They've been off for 2 weeks. They have a new OC. I just think this could be sticky for the Gators tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you start fast in your home stadium against a team that's playing for nothing.
Except their coach, to me.
Yeah, I mean, but if you start fast, you get up 14, then they're still 2-6.
Right.
Right. However much they love Sam Pittman, it's not going to be like they're playing for bowl berth.
And I think you're right. Mentally, we'll see where they're at. They're 2-6, but they had Alabama down in the fourth quarter.
I think Florida wins this. I don't know why I think this, but I think Florida opens it up tomorrow a good bit. Lets Graham Mertz spread it around a little bit. I think it's a fun game to watch as a Florida fan tomorrow.
Do they cover? It's only 4.5.
Yeah. I think so. I think it could be something along the lines of like a 31-13.
Oh, okay. So you like Florida pretty big.
Yeah.
All right. I like Florida. I'm probably not that big. I'll take Florida by 7 to 10 points. I'll say 27-16, something along those lines, 30-17. But a win's a win, and a win tomorrow gets you bowl eligible. And at this point, other than ruining Florida State's season, that's the goal, right? You have 2 goals left: get bowl eligible and ruin Florida State's season.
Yeah, from your perspective. Yeah, I think from their perspective, I think this is still very much a week to week. Like, and I know this sounds so corny and so cliche, but you just got to get better every week. You can't waste these last 5 weeks if you're counting, bowl prep. You need to make the most of these for your program to be where it needs to be next year. So I think they win. I think they find a way to win one of those last 3. Maybe one of their last wins is the bowl game. I don't know, but I don't think this will be the last time we're celebrating a win for Florida.
Heading to the Bayou next week. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Good times. I almost there's 2 times leaving an SEC stadium I thought I was going to die. Jabbar Gaffney in Knoxville, and I was only a teenager then. And Jacob Hester, 5 fourth downs in Baton Rouge.
I was there. Same thing. That was the Tim Tebow year, right?
Yes, in 07.
I remember sitting in that stadium telling my dad, if LSU don't win this game, we may not get out of here.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Well, it was. We had to walk through the LSU student body to get to our car. We were on the other side. So the LSU student body is walking outside the stadium. We're walking through them to get to the parking lot where our car was. And one of the LSU, couldn't have been 5 foot, 150-pound little dweeb for LSU, comes up to my buddy, who's pretty big, smacks him in the shoulder, right? My buddy stopped, took a deep breath, turned around. I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said, but he basically said it's go time. And he was going to go back and get that guy. We were in the middle of the entire LSU student body. And there was like 5 of us. So I essentially tackle my buddy into the bush so he doesn't do anything obscenely stupid. And we just get pummeled there.
Listen, that game, there was so much. Like, we tailgated and somebody next to us had a live gator that they killed and cooked.
Yeah.
And then if you've never been to LSU, everybody walks into the stadium at the same time. Because everything in Louisiana is a parade, right?
There's one ridiculously long road where everybody just parks on the side of the road.
Right. So everybody walks in at the same time. You walk in the stadium, it smells like Crown Royal. The entire stadium smells like Crown Royal. They're already ready to go. And then there was an upset. I think Stanford beat somebody during the game, which would push them to number 1 if they
Stanford
beat Florida.
USC.
And the decibel level got so crazy that my equilibrium was messed up.
Yeah,
it was one of the most insane atmospheres I've ever been in any sport.
When people say, loud environments, never, for people that haven't been to Baton Rouge on a Saturday night. Now, we don't know what time the game's going to be next week. It hasn't been determined yet. But it'll be a scene. There's no question.
If you haven't been, you got to go.
It's fun.
If you are a college football fan and you have not been to Baton Rouge,
I've never been. It's a bucket list for me.
And I would even tell you, don't go when your team's playing.
Yeah.
Go when you to a big game that you can just enjoy the whole thing, because that is, when people talk about it being a religion, that is a religion in Louisiana.
You need to do it like Thursday, Friday in New Orleans to get all your hand grenades and hurricanes out of the way, and then go to Baton Rouge on Saturday morning.
I feel like I need to go on a week where I could justify rooting for LSU.
I agree.
When they play like Bama.
Yeah.
That's
like
what I'm
Bama,
saying.
Maybe they play Georgia one year.
I'm in.
Like, perfect.
Done.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, you go do that, you'll have the time of your life.
Hopefully Florida beats Arkansas, and then we can have fun talking about that, because if Florida doesn't beat Arkansas, they might have to find a way to beat LSU to go to a bowl game, and that would not be a good situation to be in. Thank you to George Moore Chevrolet. Thank you to Southeast Orthopedic Specialist for Graham Marsh and Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. This has been Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com, and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.